Hey guys, Marcus Catkin with your daily fantasy update. Coming at you with some really big news actually that just broke out probably about half an hour ago. Percy Harvin gets traded to the New York Jets for a conditional pick, according to Jay Glazer, who is obviously somebody very well connected in the NFL. So he knows a thing or two about things like this, and 9 times out of 10 they're coming true. This is a legit source. So Percy Harvin to the Jets. Some interesting tidbits here, just for fantasy wise, to try to make sense of this because really it doesn't make sense for really either team. I mean, the Seahawks obviously trying to defend their Super Bowl, trading away one of their biggest playmakers, and don't really have a lot of great wide receivers behind him. And then the Jets, of course, trading for him kind of is a little odd too because they're 1-6 and they're going to be really struggling to even come close to making the playoffs this year. So kind of odd timing for both teams, but interesting nonetheless. Really wish, honestly, a team like my Patriots had got them. God knows we need some wide receiver help. But anyway, let's talk about first how this is going to affect the Jets. First up, Eric Decker. I think this has literally no effect on Eric Decker, or if anything, may even help him a little bit because it'll help take the coverage off him a little bit, keep the focus off of him. He'll obviously still be a big part of their red zone and downfield threat, whereas Harvin will be a lot of that underneath stuff. I mean, obviously this is going to upgrade people like Geno Smith and maybe Michael Vick if Vick ever gets in there, but not to a huge extent. Geno Smith obviously not the prolific passer that we would like him to be. So I think even though it gives an uptick to Geno Smith, still fantasy irrelevant right now, but does sort of help Eric Decker a little bit. Maybe makes that offense a little bit more potent. Next up, Seattle side. Obviously downgrade Russell Wilson slightly, I guess. I mean, it's not like Percy Harvin was tearing it up this year, but now we're down to these three as his big receivers. We're down to Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse, and Ricardo Lockett. Let's start off with Baldwin first, who jumps up to number 1 on their depth chart. 16 catches this year for 187 yards. He's obviously going to become their number 1 target. Has actually second in the team right now in targets. So I think obviously he becomes the biggest play for the Seattle Seahawks. Be interesting to see what he does with this number 1 job, to see if he takes it and goes with it, or if we see a guy like maybe Jermaine Kearse, who's been pretty good himself. 11 catches for 168 yards, more of a downfield guy. And then, like I said, Ricardo Lockett, a real deep threat, averaging over 21 yards per catch this season with 2 touchdowns. But as I said, I think it's Doug Baldwin is the receiver that you want to own for Seattle. If you had to own one of them. Me personally, I'm not a big Seattle receiver guy. Even with Harvin, I never really was. They just don't throw the ball enough for me, and Russell Wilson tends to spread it around enough that it makes all of them kind of fantasy irrelevant. Wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, not very exciting players. But if Doug Baldwin is out there in your waiver wire, definitely go pick him up as a speculative ad. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, what he does as the number 1 guy, getting all of the targets. Because, hey, Percy Harvin's targets have to go somewhere, guys. So don't forget to subscribe below to get my daily fantasy updates, and follow me on Twitter @MarcusCatkin.